to her this time, though. Usually we just let guests try and figure it out. But save us some time. Cynthia, how are you? How are you doing today in the humid, hot land of Costa Rica?
I am fine. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be with you in the podcast. It's hot here, a big hot weather. Yeah, we are getting into the rainy season, so it's really humid. So yeah.
Right, Aaron, have you been to Costa Rica?
I've never been. It is high on my list for sure.
If you want some waterfalls, I mean, there's tons of other stuff there too. But I went there before I was a wildlife photographer, so I have to go back sometime. But I just chased waterfalls, and there was not enough time in the day to see them all. It was such a beautiful, beautiful place. But of course, you're not from Costa Rica originally, are you, Cynthia? You're from Argentina, is that correct? How did you end up where you are? That seems like a long story.
That's a long story, yeah. I am from Argentina, yes, from Buenos Aires, a big city, Laudy city. And 3 years ago, I moved to Costa Rica. Was not the perfect time because we were in the pandemic situation. And yeah, if you want, I can tell you all the story because to move here, it was a long process to be able to move here. You know, I was born in the city, and I was born in a family with money wasn't never enough. We have all the necessary things, but was difficult for me to think in doing trips or even photography was something difficult. So yeah, I always have this strange relationship with money because it was always difficult to get. So after a couple of years ago, I went through a really difficult situation. And after that situation, after I overcome the situation, after 4 years of processing the things, I realized that I was stronger than I thought. And in that moment, I started to think that maybe these kind of things that always thought weren't for me because I couldn't afford it, maybe I can find a way to make these things come true, right? So one day I was working at that time at the museum, the Natural Science Museum in Buenos Aires, and I decided to buy a ticket to Costa Rica. So I bought a ticket in 18 installments. My hands were shaking because I never traveled before to other countries, just the countries close to Argentina a couple of times. But yeah, after that, I bought a ticket. And after that, I realized I didn't have the money. I had the ticket, but I didn't have the money to be here in Costa Rica. So after got the ticket, I went to the bank and I asked for a loan. And after that, 2 months after that, I was here alone, just traveling with my camera 1 month. And photographing wildlife here, and especially the smaller ones, right? So was a big change of mindset because I always thought that kind of life wasn't for me. And I did it. Of course, it took me 3 years to pay the loan. For some people, it's easier, but I did it. And after that, I got home again. And once you start, you can stop, right? So after that, that was in 2018. In 2019, I decided I want to travel again. I was still paying the loan for the previous travel. So I get to put together just $900 was all I get from doing extra my work. I was doing some workshops in macro photography. So I got that amount of money and I bought a ticket in 18 installments. And I went to Ecuador again alone with my camera and to do photography there. And I got back from Ecuador and I realized that I need more than 1 month in the jungle because since I am a child, I love nature so deeply, so deeply. So, yeah, and I was living in a big city. Didn't make sense, right? So, yeah. At the time, I decided that I want to move to Costa Rica, and the pandemic hit. So I get stuck a little bit. But after that, after they opened the borders again, I just bought the ticket and move here without a plan in the middle of the pandemic and without money. And I survived.
And you survived.
But yeah, here I am. Yeah.
Have you ever been to the US or Canada or outside of South America?
No, not yet. Not yet.
But not yet. But you definitely know people. Is it fair to, well, you know Aaron and I, right? I'm sure you have connections online that live in those parts of the world. Is there something about living in, because we just had a guest on from Venezuela.
I listened to.
Yeah, Carlos. And I think what I understood from that is I feel like a lot of people in Canada and the US don't really understand what the difference is in living in Argentina in places like Costa Rica. What do you think what do people not really understand about opportunity and the things that are available? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Just imagine that a minimum salary in Argentina is $150. So it's impossible. It's so difficult you can live in Argentina with all the crisis we face because Argentina is always in crisis. But if you want to go out of Argentina, it's really difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So do you have to almost, is it fair to say if you want more for yourself, you have to leave or move to another place?
Maybe you can find opportunities in your country, but yeah. I was looking for a life more connected with nature. Argentina is a big country. It's a wonderful country. It's an amazing, has a beautiful landscape, beautiful national parks, has everything because we have jungles, we have the glacier, we have Patagonia, we have desert, we have everything. But yeah, it's completely difficult to live there and to get opportunities there. It's more difficult. And here is not easy too. So I moved here to be connected with nature. Costa Rica has a great marketing, but it's not the same to visit Costa Rica in a holiday season that move here and try to insert yourself in the economy and in the culture. So yeah, it's not the same.
Right. So why macro photography? Why did you pick that? Why is that? That's not something that too many people are doing. What is it that attracts you to that?
So just before macro photography came for me biology. So I was born with this deep sensibility for nature. And that sensitivity led me to study first the career of ecology, that's biology focused on ecosystems. And then another career that is called field naturalist. That's for working in the field, taking data and doing that kind of stuff. And I discovered photography. In fact, when I was doing a work for my university, I was in the field in a reserve doing taking data from a homework that I have to do for a university. And I chose to study frogs because I love them. Mm-hmm. So I went to a reserve at night to doing the homework for the class. And I found myself in the middle of the swamp at night. And for that opportunity, I bought a pocket camera. And really, I am speaking about 2005, 2006. So I bought a pocket camera and I went to the swamp to do my shop. And I found myself in the swamp and I started to shoot with the camera just to register in the species I was studying. And I fell in love with photography. And why macro photography? Macro photography has something special. When you're photographing, for example, birds, your eyes can see the birds. Of course, a big telephoto lens can help you to see things that are far away. But when you are doing macro photography, you are discovering all the time new things, new textures, even colors, and even behaviors, right? Because our eyes can't see that. So for me, it's amazing because it allows me to discover every time something new.
Yeah, it's a whole new world.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I think I'm saving macro photography for one point in my life where I just need a complete change and to see the world in a different way. I do have that in the back of my head. Seth, I know you've talked about it too, of like, I'd like to get into that one day. We talk about like our backyard could be just a playground of bugs and insects and little thingies here and there, and just take a different look at what that world is. I think would be amazing.
I think it would be nice to, sorry to interrupt you. I think it'd be nice to step outside. And I don't mean to make it sound like macro photography is easy, but I would love to photograph bugs and insects and stuff. But it'd be cool for once to step outside my front door, maybe in a 12-meter radius, have so much to shoot, as opposed to having to travel cross country for these epic animals. Like, they're all right in your little world, but you ignore them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a different outlook and new things. New things are very exciting. You mentioned your mindset had changed, which created this push and going through a hard time. What about the hard time or that area in your life where the mindset shifted, where then you are able to take a chance and take a risk? Can you talk us, I mean, this is the photographer mindset. Can you talk us through a little bit of as much detail as you want to, but what is that shift and what went away? Did the fear go away? Did the comfort go away? Did whatever it was? I'd love for you to dig into that a little bit more.
I think that I realized that I was stronger than I thought, and I think I was able to do things that the other way wouldn't or couldn't do it, right? Because when I decided to travel the first time to Costa Rica just for a holiday, my mind was, no, you're crazy, you can't do that. I was going out to another country, I was going alone to other country, and I was going alone not just to be in the common places that normal people go. I was going to go in the middle of the jungle alone. So, and in the moment I decided, my mind was, no, you're crazy. No, yeah, you have to go. No, you're crazy. No, you have to go. Yeah, you're crazy. You have to go. And one day I visualized myself walking in some road in Costa Rica. And that moment was, I am going. And I decided to go.
That's amazing.
And also I think it's the big love that I feel for nature, right? Motivates me, because I was living in a big city, living in an avenue on a highway. So imagine my life was terrible, and I was feeling sad because I need the connection with nature. Without nature, it's my place in the world, especially the rainforest.
So back to the jungle, you're mainly macro photography, very close up, very, I always am struck by the lighting. I think that you sometimes create yourself with flashes or strobes or long lights that are on the entire time. I'm not sure exactly the techniques that go into that, but the lighting and the focusing on these animals, I am curious a little bit about the process. Maybe not too much detail, but how do you go about from finding a frog on a leaf to capturing the photo without it necessarily moving or resetting up? To me, it seems difficult. It does, if I'm just thinking about it myself.
Yeah, the first challenge, you said, is to find the animals, right? Because they are really small, and sometimes they are really cryptic, and especially in the rainforest, it's so lush, so a lot going on, and it's difficult to find the animals. So first you have to find them. And I love photographing animals at night. It's my preference. I go out during the day, but I prefer during the night. And yeah, you have to first find the animals and then to look, especially in the rainforest, because sometimes I forget that stage is to look around. Is something venomous is around you, because sometimes you get into the ground and you put your belly into the ground to get the perspective you want to the picture, right? So you have to check that everything is okay and safe around. And then you can start to concentrate in the image, right? It's difficult to do macro photography because you have to get a lot of patience. But once you internalize how to work, I work with flash even during the day, because in the macro photography the depth of field is real shallow. So when you look through the viewfinder, you are magnifying the subject, but you are magnifying everything else. So you move and your movements are magnifying too. The breeze and the movement of the leaves are magnifying too. So it's a complete chaos. So flash helps a lot to freeze all this inconvenience, right? So yeah, and we use a diffuser because it helps us to get even light. And also help not to disturb too much the animals, right? Because for me, always animals are first before the picture. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So even more so, what are the biggest challenges when doing macro photography, and what lens are you using?
I have a Canon 6D, and I am using a Canon 100 2.8 Canon macro lens. With flash, with the diffuser, and sometimes I add close-up lens that's called Raynox DCR 250 that help you when you're photographing really small subjects, help you with magnification. The macro lens has 1:1 magnification ratio, so with this close-up lens you get almost 2:1 magnification ratio. So for small animals, I use that combination. For big animals like frog or reptiles or snakes, all that stuff, I use just the macro lens.
Right. So once you've found your subject, what's the most difficult part from there on out? Or is it easier than you would think once you've found them?
I think the most difficult part is to do the focus part. Yeah. Because you have to choose a part of the animal you want in focus. Normally, if you're facing the animal, it's just you have to do the focus on the eyes, and the rest of the animal will be out of focus. So, yeah, that's, I think, the most challenging part. Because once you have your... Yeah.
Do you ever focus stack? I've seen that with macro too. Yeah, I like the depth of field look, especially with macro. I feel like it's like a 3D sort of, you're right in it. You're in the environment. But I've heard of people focus stacking with macro just to, if you were doing a flower or maybe some plants or leaves, you might want the whole thing in focus. But I do like the differentiation of the eyes or whatever your main point is. So I was just curious.
Yeah. I think it's the most interesting part about macro photography, that's blur backgrounds that get the three-dimensionality, right? Yeah.
What's been your most memorable or favorite animal to photograph in the macro world, or insect even?
I know. I am in love with frogs. I love insects, of course. I love insects and arthropods, in fact. And spiders that are arthropods too. But frogs are, I love frogs.
Is there anything about frogs people don't know?
I don't know. with these small animals, you never know, because maybe you are photographing an animal, an insect, or even a frog that is not described as science yet. So.
That's interesting. So there's, in the United States, there's birders. I'm sure actually everywhere, not just in the United States, of course, but birders who are looking for certain species of birds and they check it off their list. Are there froggers? Are you a frogger? Are there
kind of.
are there species
Yeah.
that you're looking for that more common, and you're like, oh, there's another one of those frogs. I'm really looking for this very rare frog. What's the rarest, coolest frog you've ever seen?
And last year I went to a reserve in the Caribbean side of Costa Rica, because you have here the really different species in the Pacific side and the Caribbean side. Yes, a frog. It's big. They live in high in the trees, so sometimes it's difficult to see them. And it's really colorful. It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. You'll have to attach a few of your favorite photos when we collect your files at the end of this. We'll flash them up on the YouTube so people can see.
Okay. Thank you.
Now that diffuser is that big box that you're working with when I go on your profile, right?
Yeah. The bigger, the better.
The bigger, the better. Why is that?
Because you know that the harsh light or the soft light is depending, in fact, of the size of the source of light in relation with your subject. So the bigger the source of light, the softer the light. The smaller, the harsher the light, right? So the bigger the source of light is better. And also sometimes you probably saw my pictures where I have the softbox on the camera with the flash on camera, but I like to remove the flash from the camera because you can use the light as a composition resource more.
Oh.
And create different, yeah. It's not always on the camera. Yeah.
So you'll be doing side lighting, or you'll be lighting from underneath?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask how you decided, how you could add an artistic element to it beyond just snapping photos of the animal.
Yeah, light and also composition. I always talk about perspective because it's easy to move around these small animals because you can go down, up, side, other side. So it's easy to look for different perspective and to create frames that are compelling for other people. Because, you know, behind all my work in photography is the conservation side, right? Because I am an ecologist and always work for that. So I always try to look the better way to show these animals with characteristics and to get the person's hurts and feelings.
Yeah, I was going to ask how your macro work contributed to raising awareness and wildlife conservation acts.
When I start doing macro photography in 2006, in fact, one day I realized that I could use Facebook to show my work, right? So a lot of people start to write me about the thing that they once they saw my pictures, they can see in the same way these little animals, because we know people that say I love animals, and then they see or they find a spider in the house, and the first reaction is to step on them, right? So imagine if the people that love animals step on these little animals. Imagine the people that don't love animals, right? So, but with my picture, I started to have this reaction in people that they start to look at them in a different way. So after that reaction of people, the idea is doing a book born, and I published my book in 2017. And the book is all about that. It's using the photography to show these little animals that our eyes can see, to show the structures, the colors, the behaviors, but also writing about the stories of these animals, because that's another thing that I love about them, right? Not just the picture, because I love nature, and I love not just the beauty of nature, I love all the process of nature. So, and in the book I put all together the images that just make the people stop, and then all the stories behind these animals, the strategies they use to survive, because some of them are seems like out of fiction. So, this is a way that people can related with them. And I also wrote up the book thinking about our daily life. So I connect our daily life with the life of these small animals, right? And this is a way that people can relate with them and look at them in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to write your book? Is it The World of Small, an approach to the universe of arthropods from an artistic, visual, and evolutionary perspective? How long did it take you to write that?
It took me 4 years.
There's 4 years. Wow.
Yeah, more than 10 years of photographing in the wild, and 4 years since the moment I decided to do it. I sit in a desk and start to write, selecting the picture, and also did the design by myself. Because it's another thing, going back to your question about the difficulties in South America on this countries. When you don't have the resources, sometimes I think that can be something good, right? Because in that moment, I didn't have the resources to hire a designer for doing the book. So I learned how to do it by myself. So I learned how to use InDesign. It took me a long time, 4 years, but I did the book, and also now I have the skill. So sometimes not having the resources help. Yeah. Help doing things that other way you probably hire another person to do the job.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that when you don't have the resources, and that was our theme with Carlos, right? You got to figure it out. You got to figure it out, and then when you figure it out, you have that skill for life. Yeah.
Yeah, the same happened with my website. Time ago, I wanted to do my website. I didn't have the resources to hire a designer again. So I learned how to do it by myself. Now I have my website. I also work for other people doing their website. So yeah, it's a skill that, gives me another opportunity, right?
And your editing style is very unique too. I really like it. I feel like it jives with my eye and what I like to do a little bit with my photos. So I'm curious how that developed over the years as well. And is that something you figured out on your own, or was that through other people or people you looked up to? What was that process? Because if everyone should look at your profile, you'll see some very I think a little desaturated, and there's a lot of use of shadows and light and dark, and it gives sort of a very intimate, emotional view of all these animals. So I'm curious where that comes from.
Yeah, in the beginning, I didn't want to edit too much the pictures because I was trying to show the people who are world that they don't pay attention. So I want to show them as the raw file, right? But then in the pandemic, I started to learning how to edit more in depth. And being here in the jungle, I realized that when you just shoot the picture with your flash, doesn't represent the reality of the jungle, because in the jungle you don't have light. So the edition that I do now reflects more the environment I work at. The other kind of picture, right? When you have just the flash on them.
Awesome.
I started learning alone. I bought some presets, and I started to look what the people do, how things change when you, and I learned that way. Yeah.
Very nice. I have to ask too, I do notice every once in a while you'll throw up a story or a video of you absolutely ripping on a guitar. And I'm curious, Seth, again, it's a common theme, the music and the photography or video. I don't know. I would say 80%, 90% of our guests, it's up there.
I mean, I can play, but I can't rip.
Yeah, that's fine. But a love for music and I guess maybe it's the personality type of wanting to learn, wanting to figure things out. Maybe that's the connection, and then the art on top of it. But there is a really high correlation between people that are playing guitar or music or piano or whatever it is and doing creative work. I'm curious for you, which came first, and tell me what you find very similar about music and photography. How would you tie those two together if you had to say, this is what they both give me?
Both are art, an expression of the soul, right? So yeah, I think that. But when I was a really small girl, I I spent a lot of my young years as an athlete, right? I trained from artistic gymnastics and then from synchronized swimming. And I think that's the base of my personality, right? Because I trained at that time 4 hours per day, almost every day, since 5 years old, since I was 5 years old. So that gives me the learning, or the knowledge to be consistent, to put the work you need to reach the things you want to do, right? So I think that those years shaped my personality. And when I was a child, also I was studying music. And also my drawings, my paintings, I was born with that thing. My grandfather was an artist, I think that runs in the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started to draw when I was a child, doing the sport, and I started studying music. I studied some piano when I was a teenager. And then I left the sport because, it's a lot of responsibility. And when you get in the adolescence, it's difficult because all your friends want to go out and you're just, I need to go train. I need to train. And it's always the same, right? So I left the sport for a while and I picked up the guitar. And I fell in love with the guitar. But playing the guitar is difficult. You need to spend a lot of hours. And the same I did with the sport, 4 hours per day, I did the same with the guitar. So I spent a lot of time learning and studying. And I went to teachers that helped me with that. Yeah. And I had a band. We played 5 years live.
You do?
Yeah, in a girl band. Yeah, and we were 3 girls and shots in the
what's the name of the band?
Yeah, what's the Instagram for that?
No, Instagram didn't exist in that time. I am kind of poor, right? That's another thing related to my move to Costa Rica, and that's things that people tell you all the time that you are too old to do these kind of things or to shout and to leave everything and the safety of your work and your apartment and all the stuff. I am old. Yeah, I am older than Aaron.
Are you?
Yeah,
jeez, that's a first on the show. Someone's older than me. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that at that time we didn't have Instagram and all the stuff. And imagine that we recorded the live show with a Walkman on the stage.
I love it. The good old days. Old days. Well, if we're ever together, you have to bring that cassette and you have to bring the tapes. We'll play it.
Okay.
I don't know where we're going to play it. Where plays cassette tapes anymore, but we'll figure it out.
An old car.
Yeah, an old car. That's right.
Yeah.
So you're not doing macro as your full-time photography, right? You're working on the side. Yes, is that true?
Yeah, I'm doing. Moving here wasn't easy. I moved, as I told you, in the middle of the pandemic situation, without money, without a plan, without anything. Just jump into the business and move here.
Yeah.
And then I ended up working first in a biological station. Then I moved to this lodge in the middle of the mountain, off grid, without electricity. I lived there 1 year, just in a cabin made by tents, all broken. I didn't have the possibility to close the door or close the window, without electricity, without hot water, without internet, in the middle of the jungle, next to Corcovado National Park, one of the hotspot of biodiversity in the world. Imagine how the snakes and all the animals just going around my house, and I couldn't close the door. So, but I was living there and doing some. I guide people into the forest during the day, during the night too. So I work there doing that. Right. Also with some lesson in photography. And yeah, then I moved here when I am now. I have a friend that she has been living in Costa Rica for 20 years. So she was managing an hotel here in the Nicosia Peninsula. So she needed help, so I came here. I help in the hotel, and in exchange, I have a house to live.
Is it
then
an upgrade?
Yeah, I have doors and windows now, like I can close.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the little things, right? It's the little things. Like, you're grateful for doors and windows. Think about that, people listening, right?
Yeah,
like,
but you know,
we get so mad somebody cuts us off in traffic, but we're talking about doors and windows here. Like, what an upgrade. Like, yes. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, but you know that now I have windows and doors, but I don't have that big forest I had before because I was living in the middle of the jungle, so I miss a lot that. So I moved here, and when I get here, I did some flyers. I went to the little town. I placed the flyers all over the town, offering guide tours in the national park that is close here, and also offering photography lessons. And last week I did a photo shoot for a yoga teacher. Yeah, I'm doing different stuff, and I am also working with Nature Photographers Network. It's a membership from US. So I'm helping them. I am the event coordinator.
Yeah. Wow. You just rifled off like what, 15 different things that you've done or are doing. And the reason I asked that question is because people, I feel, get so caught up on, we talk about this all the time, right? Cynthia, you listen to the show, you know, Aaron, we talk about this all the time. They're like, I gotta be full time if I'm like gonna consider myself good or if I'm gonna enjoy myself. Like I have to be a pro for people just listening and not on YouTube. I'd put up quotes. And it's just not the case. I mean, it's from, what you've told us and how we've, your Instagram, like you just love photographing nature and small things, and you're going to do what it takes that you have the ability to do that and enjoy yourself doing it. And I think that's an important message. Like, I'm going to go put flyers up in the town. I'm going to photograph a yoga teacher. I'm going to live in a place that doesn't have windows and doors if it allows me to do what I really want to do. And that's all that matters. And it's the ability to put the ego aside, right? I don't care what other people think of me. If other people think that I'm crazy or whatever, that doesn't matter because I'm doing what I want to do and I'm living my life and I'm creating my path, right? I mean, it's very difficult, and we all struggle with this sometimes, to not care about what other people think. But I think what you've just kind of described is a great template or a great inspirational story about that.
Yeah. And if I could add to that, Seth, because that was really well said. I think the other piece is she learned very quickly at a young age that 4 hours of work on a skill is what it takes for many, many, many years daily to get to a place of competition and excellence, let's call it, or greatness, and however that's measured. And when you learn that early on, or you have a skill that you can look back on, like I make the skateboarding analogy. To do a skateboard trick, you have to do thousands and thousands and thousands of attempts before you get it, and then it becomes easy. But there could be broken bones in between, scratches, falling down, wanting to quit, and those kids keep going until they get the trick. And that's a reward, and that's a blueprint in terms of anything else. Learning piano, learning gymnastics, learning guitar, none of that there's the rarest person that's an excellent guitarist after playing for 1 year, unless they spent 10 hours a day, and even still, you can't sacrifice just time and perseverance at the same time. So I think her upbringing gave her the sort of like, this is not going to be a quick thing. Like, I'm okay with taking my time, and I know that if I spend 4 hours a day for 15 years, I'm going to get somewhere. But I think in this day and age, people are very quick to be like, it didn't happen in a month. I don't have 100,000 followers. I'm out. Like that was too much work. I'm done. Versus this takes a lot of work, no matter what it is, to be excellent at.
Well, and we've talked about that when people I try to refrain from being too black and white about things. Listening back to some episodes, sometimes I think I have that tendency, but I feel like a lot of the times, if you're somebody who tries something for a month, goes hard at it for a month, and then it doesn't work out to your expectations, you have unrealistic expectations, and it doesn't work, and you go, it's not for me, I quit. I think, maybe one of two things. One, you didn't like that thing enough to keep going. So good that you're done. Good that you're not going to waste any more time on that thing, and you can go discover something else, like frogs in Costa Rica that you really like, right? Or I think what's worse, and maybe these two aren't mutually exclusive, that it's possible you have a tendency to just not see things through. And that goes, there's lots of different reasons for that. The short-term gratification world we live in, social media doesn't help, right? I mean, that's for your own assessment. If you're somebody listening, if you're being honest with yourself and you say, wow, I've never seen anything through, dig into that. Why is that? See something through once and the next one's easier. Hopefully we're not going on too many tangents, but it just made me think of that. That's good.
I would add something else to the conversation, because the thing is, I am not just a nature photographer.
Right.
Before that, I am a biologist. So for me, doing the tours and teaching people about the magical, all the magic scenes and stories that you can find in nature, for me, is part of the same, right? It's not just I had to work doing photography, because I am not just that. I am also an artist. Right. I am trying to improve my skills in illustration too. So yeah, I am a lot of things. So
you're a student.
I am a student.
Yes, so important. And I think what you just said is kind of sort of blends with what I was just talking about, where there's people who say, I am a photographer, and that's their entire identity. I mean, if that's your entire identity and you don't succeed at it, or it gets taken away from you, maybe you go blind. Like, now what are you? What else do you have left? Like, you have to have the ability to wear more than one hat and not be so attached to being one thing, right? You just said, I'm an ecologist, I'm a guitar player, I'm a photographer, I'm a tour guide, I'm all these things. So that if one gets, I'm not so attached to one thing that if it gets removed from my life, that my life is destroyed. I think that's very important.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, well said, Seth.
I don't know. Just made me think of that. Let's go through my questions list here. What are some future projects or goals you have? Do you have big goals down the pipeline?
Yeah, always I have goals, because that's also things that sports teach me, right? You always have something to reach. You reach it and you need something else. So yeah, I'm trying to launch the photo tours here in Costa Rica, working on that. One of my main aims for this year is to improve my English to a really high level. So
yeah, can we talk about that?
Yeah,
we got to talk about that.
Classes.
It's already at a very high level. It's
very good. The first thing I think I want to mention this because, and I'm realizing I'm interrupting you, and I'm so sorry, but I have to say this so that listeners know, is that before we started recording, well, first of all, Cynthia is a huge supporter of the show, and we've always chatted and we've always loved your work, and it's good to have you here. But the first thing she said before we started recording is like, oh, I'm nervous, right? I'm nervous, and English it's your second language, I presume. But you're still on here, knowing that tons of people are going to listen to this, knowing that you might make some mistakes in your English, and being okay with that. Being okay with not having, a perfect interview, right? Whereas there's lots of people, I mentioned to you, there was somebody I reached out to, and they said, oh, I'm not really confident in my ability to talk. And I said, well, thank you. I told him, I said, thank you for being honest, and I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. But you do that too many times, you shy away from life, right? So being here doing this podcast, I as you know, is going to do so many, good things for you. And not because it's our show, but just because you're choosing to do something difficult and that's scary, right? So
and you get through it, and then you go like, oh, that was scary, but I got through it. Now, next time I'm scared, I can remember.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're taking English. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, time ago, happened something similar, because from my university, they called me to give some macro photography class in the naturalist field in university. And my first reaction, my mind was, no, I can't do that, because I'm really an introvert and kind of shy. So it was something that it wasn't natural, but I pushed myself and I did it. And the funny thing is that once I was given the class, I realized that I love it. I love to teach people, and I am good at that, because people now I gave several workshops in Argentina and also here, and I'm good doing that. But I had to push myself through the fears to realize that in fact I like it, and it's the same here. And then the things that I know I have to improve myself.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You were rattling off dates like 2017, 2006, and I was thinking back to my French days, and like speaking is one thing, but then you switch over to numbers, and I was like, whoa, that's where I paused, where I was like, oh, she knows it. She's rattling off dates in the thousands, but you're doing great. It's always impressive to me, because I'm the furthest from bilingual as you could possibly be, I think.
I did get one Spanish sentence down when I was in Spain. It was "Lo siento, mi español es no muy bueno."
Yeah,
that let me off the hook every time.
Perfect.
I will say though that 3-4 months of the Duolingo apps and all that stuff is nothing compared to just throwing yourself into the chaos and trying to learn it. I learned more in a week from struggling and looking silly than I did from theorizing and practicing on an app. It's just not the same.
Yep.
Wow, totally.
So I cut you off. You're doing English classes. You're trying to do photo tours. Was there anything else?
Improving my skills in watercolor painting and trying to do some more scientific illustration. Yeah. And I want to be in nature doing photography, because I realized the other day I was going through old albums in my computer, and since 2006, and I can't remember exactly the moment, and I can't remember exactly where I took that picture, what's happened in the moment. And that's because when I do photography and when I am nature, I completely present, right? So I need more of that. So my aim is something that I have to do here. Now, each 6 months is to cross the border, because I don't have residency here. So I have to cross the border each 6 months. So in May, I have to cross the border. So my idea is to go to Colombia to do some pictures in the jungle. We will see what happens.
Very cool. Is Costa Rica your home now, do you think? Or is there somewhere else you want to land?
I don't know. For now, it's Costa Rica. But you never know. I think it has to be a place where it's nature, and especially rainforest, but can be other place too.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And you have a macro book for people who want to learn, right? You offer an ebook if people want to check that out in English and Espanol.
The ebook is in English. I have in Spanish. I have a course, macro photography complete course, that I recorded before coming here, Costa Rica. I sell also presets and different stuff.
Cool. Well, we appreciate you coming on today.
Also my book, The World is Small.
Yeah, where can people find that?
I sell the physical version just in Argentina, because the shipping costs are really high.
Right.
But you can find in my website also the digital version.
Okay, and we'll link that in the episode description. Cynthia, thanks for coming on today. Thanks for doing something scary too.
Yeah, that was awesome. It's such a good story.
Thanks.
And thank you to the cicadas that serenaded us. You can tell you're somewhere tropical.
And the jaguar early on. Did you hear that jaguar?
Yeah, that jaguar, the cat.
The kitty.
All right.
So fun.
All right. Thank you guys. Until next time.
Oh,
Thanks.
See ya.
thank you.